Good afternoon and welcome to ZTN News Blitz. Here's a look at our top stories. Zim retailers forex rate shocker. Booster shots for immunocompromised persons. Kenya to disregard court ruling on sea border. And in sport, Zim Warriors on brink of elimination. Now, some businesses in Zimbabwe are defying the country's official forex rate, pegging prices using the black market rate, which has almost tripled the official rate. On the official market, one United States dollar is being traded for 88 Zimbabwe dollars, but some of the businesses which access forex at the auction rate are milking desperate Zimbabweans of their hard-earned cash. A survey conducted by ZTN on Monday at some retail outlets left our reporter numb. At TV sales in hire, they were using a rate of 170, the same as Manhattan Interiors, while fast food retail outlet Steers was using $160. OK Zimbabwe and Pick n Pay were using $88, which is prescribed at law. The Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries is pushing for a temporary reduction of the total amount to be allocated at the auction market to $25 million or less over the next 3 weeks while clearing the auction backlog. Currently, there is an outstanding amount running into months, and the industry players are also encouraged the central bank to adopt a first-in, first-out method in clearing the backlog. In recommendations, industry asked the Apex Bank to prioritize bids that have been waiting in the queue for longer to be settled first to enhance confidence amongst players in the market. CZI President Kurai Macheza speaks.
But we are saying our understanding is roughly you are auctioning 40 million, roughly. So if some figure like 15 can go towards addressing the backlogs, and then once that is cleared, then everything is coming to the auction. But this is a recommendation which is subject to be considered by the authority.
Now, on Monday, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe had a sit-down with business to find a solution on the runaway exchange rate and also the pricing system. Our correspondent Andy Hodges unpacks some key notes from the meeting.
86 to 1 US dollars, that's the official rate, and the parallel market rate is trading anywhere up to 200 to 1 US dollar. Well, the Reserve Bank and business sat down and agreed to look at what they called unjustified jumps in black market exchange rates and the consequent pricing in some areas. The governor said the black market rates were really due to sentiment, in other words, how you and me feel about where the rate should be, and that the economic fundamentals in Zimbabwe were sound. One key area agreed to by the central bank was to make sure that the backlog in the auction system was taken care of, and they promised that the backlog would not reoccur. Now, what is the solution? What is actually the consequence of this? Well, first of all, obviously, if the auction market gets as much currency as is needed, it means that the businesses that were trading on the parallel market rate will not have to do that anymore, as they can find the currency in the official market rate. What does it mean for consumers? Well, hopefully with a flattening of the parallel market rate, or at least the reduction of the rate down to levels, hopefully down to 86 to 1, which some people obviously are hoping for, it means that your prices in the shops will hopefully stabilize, and if not, start going down. Back to the studio.
The Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, ZNCC, believes the forex auction system has failed. ZNCC Chief Executive Christopher Mgaga speaks.
The biggest challenge today we have coming from private sector, obviously it's an exchange rate argument. I think you know Zimbabwe's exchange rate is determined by an auction, which obviously is, I never stammered to say with an auction which is failing. It is failing at the moment. And as private sector, our belief is in making sure somehow we create an auction which will incentivize exporters. Right now, to import is big business than to export. It's more lucrative.
Economist Professor Prosper Chitambara believes the rates have reached a point of no return.
The prices are generally sticking downwards. I don't think they're going to drop. But I think we need probably there should be some kind of stability in terms of the movements or in terms of the depreciation. Yes, the rising demand on account of an improving economy or general economic recovery should result in some adjustment in the exchange rate. But I'm not sure whether the depreciation we have seen within the black market is supported by any fundamentals.
An advisory group to the World Health Organization, WHO, has recommended that people with weaker immune systems should receive an additional shot of approved COVID-19 vaccines. The recommendation follows a 4-day meeting of the Strategic Advisory Group of Experts on Immunization. A final report will be issued in December. However, notable recommendations state that moderately and severely immunocompromised persons should be offered an additional dose of all WHO-approved vaccines, since these individuals are less likely to respond adequately to vaccination following a standard primary vaccine series and are at higher risk of severe COVID-19 disease. Now, what does this recommendation mean for countries like Zimbabwe? The country has vaccinated over 15% of its targeted population towards achieving herd immunity by year end. Will Zimbabwe consider the booster shot recommendation? The country's chief coordinator to the COVID-19 response, Dr. Agnes Mahomva, responds to this question.
It doesn't mean every single thing that is recommended by WHO it's automatically taken on board. We have to look at what's on the ground. So this is breaking news from WHO. We are looking at it, at the same time looking at our situation on the ground. Remember, our policy direction is about getting the largest percentage of those who are eligible for vaccination to be vaccinated before we start looking at and you call them booster. But I think WHO carefully announced that they're not providing any boosters. They're really additional shots for those who are immunocompromised.
Disabled but not unable. No words than this concise remark can better capture the reality of persons with disabilities. An expo which is underway in Zimbabwe's third largest city, Gweru, is helping buttress the above truism, debunking the myth that people with disabilities are incapable. The annual National Disability Expo kicked off on Monday, providing a platform for persons with disabilities to showcase their skills and self-crafted wares. This year's edition officially opens on Wednesday, with President Emmerson Mnangagwa expected to officiate. Now, this will be the first time a head of state graces the occasion in a country where an estimated 1.4 million people have disabilities. A chairperson of the expo, Tafadzwa Matope, spoke to ZTN.
The 2021 National Disability Expo is going to be officially opened on the 13th of October 2021 by His Excellency Comrade E.D. Mnangagwa, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. This is very important to us as persons with disabilities because it shows that our government of Zimbabwe is taking serious and recognition to persons with disabilities in the disability fraternity at large. His Excellency Honorable E.D. Mnangagwa has done this for the first time ever. The National Disability Expo was born in 2013.
41 people have died in human-wildlife conflict since the start of the year. Authorities in Zimbabwe say they anticipate human-wildlife cases to increase as the country moves towards peaks of the dry season of the year. The latest case involves a Victoria Falls-based anti-poaching unit operations coordinator, Clever Kapandura, who was trampled to death by an elephant on Friday, the 8th of October. Zimpark's spokesperson Tinashe Farao speaks.
There was an unfortunate incident last week Friday in Victoria Falls where a 51-year-old game scout was trampled to death by an elephant. It's very unfortunate. We continue to lose lives in human-wildlife conflict cases. This incident happens after we've received several distress calls from residents of Victoria Falls complaining about animals encroaching into communities, destroying, of course, their vegetable gardens and many others. This is the 41st life that we have been lost this year alone. We are likely going to to record more cases. We are now at the peak of the dry season, so it means less water in our parks and more pressure on the water hose. And it means animals will be moving into communities in search of water.
We head to East Africa, where Kenya is set to disregard the judgment of the International Court of Justice on the maritime border with Somalia. The two countries are both claiming 160,000 square kilometers in the Indian Ocean, believed to be rich in oil and gas. Kenya's border currently runs horizontally into the Indian Ocean, and that is how Nairobi wants it to stay. But Somalia insists its southern boundary should run southeast as an extension of the land border. In its application, Somalia said diplomatic negotiation has failed, and it is now asking the court to determine the precise geographical coordinates of the single maritime boundary in the Indian Ocean. Going to the US, a Massachusetts man who tried to scam a COVID-19 business aid scheme and faked his own death to evade authorities has been sentenced to 56 months in prison. David Stavely falsely claimed to co-own 4 large businesses in need of nearly $544,000 in support of a federal government program. After being charged last year, Stavely staged suicide and fled using false identities and also a stolen vehicle license plates. He is the first person to be charged with fraudulently seeking the loans, and prosecutors condemned his actions in their sentencing memo. He saw the economic emergency created by the pandemic simply as an opportunity to make himself rich by taking for himself what is meant for those in need. Now, at least 2 people have been killed in a small plane crash in a San Diego, California suburb. The plane, which was identified as a 2-engine Cessna C-340, crashed into the residential neighborhood. The damage was extensive and 2 others were rushed to nearby hospitals. The National Transportation Safety Board said it is investigating the crash. One fire official said it was a brutal scene. An audio of the pilot's exchanges with the air traffic control about half a mile from the runway. A controller could be heard telling the plane that it is too low, and the controller repeatedly urged the plane to go up to 5,000 feet, but to no avail. Sports news comes up next. Don't go away. We'll be right back. All right, on sports news today, it's D-Day for the Warriors. A do-or-die for Coach Norman Mapeza's Chargers. The Warriors, who are currently playing Ghana in the 2022 World Cup qualifiers, they will be eliminated if they lose today. That match kicked off at 3 p.m. and 12 minutes into the game, it's still 0-0. Remember, Ghana did beat us on Saturday 3-1, and Zimbabwe have a point, while Ghana will move to 9 if they win today, and 2 rounds of matches still remain to play in the group. Now in cricket, Zimbabwe cricket women's team head coach Adam Chifo says the team has a lot to work on ahead of the ICC ODI World Cup qualifiers. That's next month. Speaking after a series loss to Ireland yesterday, Chifo said he expects an improvement when Zimbabwe host Bangladesh for 3 ODIs before the qualifier next month.
I think we need to work on all departments, and regarding the batting, I think our top 4 need to come to the party. I thought maybe there was a batting track. I saw what Ireland did. They got tons in the top 4 and everything, and we're looking into it. More partnerships. When it comes to our bowling, we need to be more consistent. Both our fields and be more disciplined. And then our fielding again, we were sloppy sometimes, and that cost us a lot. So all in all, we need to work on all departments going forward.
That does it for today's edition of News Blitz. You can stay connected with us on Twitter at ZTN News, also on Instagram, it's at ZTN. Well, then 5 is coming up next. Stay with us.